Good afternoon, Shawnee and friends. I'm Pastor Sue, and welcome to this week's edition of Patio Ponderings. I'm so glad you decided to join me. I had the week off from Patio Ponderings last week, which actually worked out really well since we didn't have worship on Sunday due to a major snowstorm. So I'm going to talk about that story that we missed last week, and then we'll be all caught up. So the story we had in worship last Sunday is the story of the raising of Lazarus. Lazarus, Mary, and Martha are siblings. They are deeply loved by Jesus. And though Jesus gets word that Lazarus is deeply ill, he is not able to make it in time. And he arrives 4 days after Lazarus has died. So these are the particular verses that I've been thinking about. So when Mary, sister of Lazarus, arrives where Jesus was and saw him, she fell at his feet and said, "Lord, if you had been here, my brother wouldn't have died." And when Jesus saw her crying, he was deeply disturbed in his spirit and he was troubled. We are people of faith, and people whose faith is built on the story of Jesus' own death and resurrection, and the promise that that resurrection and that eternal life is ours. And still, in this earthly life, death is an inevitable reality. And like Mary and Martha in this story, so often when death occurs, when we lose a loved one, we have questions. We want to know why. We question Jesus. Why weren't you here? Why did you let this happen? These are big questions in our faith of why Jesus doesn't interfere, why we're allowed to suffer, why death happens in ways that often feel tragic and unjust. There are so many mysteries to the way that God does and does not act in the world. And we can think through many possibilities in how death and tragedy play out. But we don't have, in many cases, in most cases, tangible answers. But what we do know from this story, and that is so important, is that when we mourn, when we grieve, Jesus grieves with us. Jesus is as disturbed and troubled by death as we are. It's not a part of God's vision for us as God's people or for the world. It's certainly not a part of God's kingdom. Where we run into particular trouble is that we live in a culture that is terrible with dealing with death. We do everything we can to hide it, to deny it, to medicalize it, to avoid conversation about it. We use all kinds of euphemisms for it. We can hardly say that someone died. And so when death does happen, that only serves to intensify our grief and to make the death even harder than it is, because we have no skills or no ability to be in conversation about it or to kind of move through it as people together, which is so critical when this happens. And this is compounded when there are children who grieve. And this is kind of what I want to talk a little bit about is what happens when a child loses a grandparent or a parent or a friend, a beloved relative, even a family pet. When we don't have the skills to always talk about it or think through it ourselves. I'm talking about this a little bit because this is something we've done in with our confirmation youth the last couple of years, is when we encounter stories like this particular one with Lazarus, we spend some time talking about death and what that is and our questions around it and what does it mean to grieve and to mourn. And I find the kids are so engaged. We often have a feeling that we need to protect our children from it. But I think it's more helpful to simply be honest, to listen to their questions, to listen to their feelings. And so I want to talk a little bit about what are the resources, what are those tools that we can start to use as grown-ups that might help the kids around us who are grieving a death. Primarily what I just talked about, listen to their questions, listen to their feelings. What are they wondering about? What are they worried about? Answer their questions as best as you can, honestly. And if that means you're saying, I don't know, then that's the best answer. Answer simply. And use words and ideas that are age appropriate. Some other things we can think about is to share our own feelings. This is a good way for us to practice sharing our own feelings around death and the things that we wonder about. It's okay for our kids to see us cry. We can cry with them when we're grieving a loss. Creative outlets are great ways to help our kids and ourselves move through the grieving process. Writing, painting, drawing, music, all of these things can be incredibly helpful. Sharing memories, videos, pictures can be helpful. And I also find that using stories can be very helpful too. And this is the one we used in confirmation this year. It's written for elementary age, but I found that the kids of all ages were really engaged in this. And this is called Badger's Parting Gifts. And it's about Badger, who has grown very, very old and has died, and all his friends are so sad. And one by one, each one gets to reflect on Badger and the gifts that he left for them and the things that Badger taught them. And as spring comes, the animals too find some new life and a relief from their sadness. And it's interesting, if you've noticed as we've talked through this, so many of the ways that we help our kids are the ways that we can help each other in our grief as well. So I'm going to list a few things below this video of a couple of different resources. There is no timeline for grief, but sometimes we do get stuck in different places in that journey. Please ask for help, pastor, myself, a counselor, even a trusted friend. Lots of resources out there if we ask. And as always, I want to hear what you have to say. Very broadly, what do you want to talk about when it comes to death? What do you wonder about? What are your feelings? How has it impacted you? I hope that you will be brave and courageous to open up in some discussion with somebody in your life on this hard topic. And always remember that death does not have the last word for us. There is more to come. Eternal life is ours. It is a gift given to us through God's gift of grace. Enjoy the warmer temperatures coming, and we will see you on Sunday. Bye.